Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Inclusion and Belonging panel as part of our summer orientation series. My name is Sarah Scalzo. I am the director in Loyola's Office of Student Engagement. Some of you may have seen me on previous webinars, and if you have, welcome back. If you are new to our series, I'd like to welcome you to your first orientation session. And again, a little bit about who I am and what my office does. We support students throughout their transition, particularly in their first year at Loyola. So we are the ones that are running the orientation program, including Fall Welcome Weekend. And my office also works with students as they transition through their 4 years at Loyola. So we have programming for sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And one of the other exciting aspects of our office is we work really closely with kind of the life outside the classroom. So student government, campus activities, late night programming, some of which we'll talk about later on this evening. And the purpose of our event tonight is for you to hear a little bit about what life is like on campus. We are going to share a series of videos with you that some of our student orientation leaders, the Evergreens, created, wrote, directed, all of that good stuff. So it's got a very student feel to it. But these videos are really about the reality of what they've experienced during their time at Loyola. And following the videos, we'll have some of our campus experts introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they do, and then we'll open up the floor to offer you a chance to ask questions that you might have about your students, about the Loyola experience in general. One thing that I would like to let you know is that we will use the term parent kind of broadly to define parent, guardian, support person. So it's just a general term that we use. We know that a parent shows up in many different forms at Loyola. If you need closed captioning, you can turn that on. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little CC button and you'll be able to watch everything that we say transcribed, as well as Zoom can pick up for us. And then the last thing that I wanted to let you know is that this event will be recorded and it'll be available on our website, and we'll offer you a chance to view it later. And I did forget one other thing. Your students will be viewing these videos as part of their orientation program as well, and we'll be debriefing and discussing them in their meetings with the Evergreens next week. So it's often a question, are my students seeing exactly what I'm seeing? And the answer is yes, the exact same videos. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. Our friends in our event services office are going to go ahead and play the video, and then we will welcome you back in about 7 minutes. So sit back and enjoy.
Coming to Loyola was very scary and nerve-wracking at first. After all, I was the first in my family to attend college, and I didn't know what to expect. And going to a predominantly white institution, I was nervous that I wouldn't fit in or make any new friends. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to figure it out, ask questions, and get the support that I needed. Over the summer, I attended a couple of events during the Unity and Community Week at Loyola. One was an event for Alana students, which stands for African, Latinx, Asian, and Native American students. And the other was for first-generation college students like me, whose families did not attend a four-year college. I was able to meet with returning students who were directly involved with Alana Services, the Black Student Union, and other organizations on campus. These events were a lot of fun, and by the time I moved to campus, I'd already made some connections. When I moved in, I met my roommate and we got along really well. I was so relieved. I figured that we'd spend a lot of time together, but that ended up not being the case. Once the semester started, she started to make her own group of friends, and I started thinking that Loyola was not the right place for me. I began to feel like Loyola lacked the community that I was searching for. I wasn't exactly sure of how to get involved, so I reached out to one of the students who led the first Gen Summer event. She was really welcoming, and I figured she could help point me in the right direction. She invited me to grab coffee with her, and we walked to the CIE, Center of Intercultural Engagement, in the Student Center. There were a ton of students there talking, hanging out, and playing games, and she took the time to introduce me to a lot of them. I also was able to meet some of the staff there and form a relationship with them. In the end, I knew that college was not just about me. It's about making my family proud. They're always my biggest fans, and they made the utmost sacrifice to get me to be here. When they came to family weekend, I was so excited to show my family and my siblings the campus and introduce my family to my friends. It made me feel like I belonged as part of Loyola community and this was my home. By family weekend, I knew that Loyola was the right place for me.
Hey, how are you feeling? I haven't seen you since we were back home.
Hey, I've been doing alright, but I feel like I'm having a hard time adjusting to all this. It's a lot different from high school.
What's wrong?
I've been feeling bored a lot lately, and I haven't made that many new friends. And my classes only take up a few hours of my day. I kept hearing about how amazing college was all throughout high school, and to be honest, I'm feeling a bit underwhelmed.
Yeah, I get that. My semester really turned around when I joined intramural soccer in the Spanish club. Practice and meetings kept me from getting bored, and I actually made a lot of new friends with some of the girls on the team.
That sounds like fun, but I'm worried that my courses might be too difficult, and I want to make sure I have enough time to focus on academics.
I totally understand, and I even thought the same thing when I first got here. But making friends earlier actually helped me a lot. And you're only in class a few hours a day, which is way less than high school. So you have plenty of time to get your work done. And as weird as it might sound, I even find myself budgeting my time and getting my work done more efficiently than I did before.
Yeah, you might be right. Maybe I should get involved and join a club, but I don't know how.
Tell you what, why don't you come with me to the activities fair this week? There's going to be over 120 clubs there, so you're bound to find something you're interested in.
Sounds great, thank you.
Hey Caroline, is that you?
Hey, I joined Mitchell, the swim club, Relay for Life, and the Chinese club.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it is, but I constantly have something to do. I haven't had a minute to be bored in weeks.
Sounds like you really took my advice to get involved, but do you think you might be doing a little bit too much?
No, I don't think so, but I have to go. I have an initial meeting in 2 minutes, and then I'm going to a yoga class at 6, the Chinese club at 7, and then I'm meeting up with a few friends right after, and then I have to write a 6-week paper for my 8 a.m.
Do you even have any time to sleep? It sounds like you might be overextending yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe I am a little too busy, and I missed a few assignments for class because I haven't had enough time in my schedule to complete them.
Sounds like it's starting to become a problem. You might need to figure out which clubs you like the best. Prioritize those meetings to free up some much needed study time. I mean, it's good to be busy and all, but you need to have a minute to breathe every once in a while, not to mention get your work done.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll look into adjusting my schedule this week.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. You seem way happier than last time I saw you. And if I had to guess, I'd say you even got some sleep last night.
Yeah, I am. I took a step back and I'm only involved in the clubs that I'm really passionate about. I'm staying on top of my schoolwork and I still have enough time to have fun with my new friends that I've made.
That's amazing. Do you have time to grab Iggy's tonight? I'd love to catch up.
Absolutely.
I don't know what to tell him. What do you think he should do?
Maybe it's best if he leaves and goes back to Butler.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What should I say to him? He feels responsible for Luke, but he's also in a really uncomfortable situation.
I don't know, because it's a really difficult situation. Seems like these people aren't his friends at all. And while he doesn't want to leave Luke, Nick's trying to look out for himself. He tried to get Luke to leave, but that really hasn't worked.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if he doesn't want to leave, then there isn't much he can do other than to just make sure Luke won't be completely alone.
Thank you both for helping me through this. I was uncomfortable with all those people I didn't know there, but I didn't want to leave Luke behind either. Luckily, I found one of his friends who said he would take care of him.
No problem. I know it sucks being the only non-drinker at a party, but I'm glad that you were able to stand up for yourself while you could.
Yeah, that is tough. Movie, anyone?
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Christina Spearman, and I'm the Dean of Students here at Loyola. I'm so happy to be with you tonight and to facilitate this question and answer time with my colleagues who are subject matter experts. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not from around here. I'm from South Carolina. I do say y'all. Accent will come out pretty quickly as we start talking. And I want to tell you a little bit about what a Dean of Students does. I like to think of a Dean of Students as an air traffic controller. So I have to work to make sure students get where they need to go, and there's usually a lot of things going on. I do a lot of connecting and referring. I'm not usually the person who has the solution, but I know who has the solution, and I can help connect students to resources across the university. I support students in their endeavors outside of class, and I work closely with a number of offices to help foster holistic student development. And I'm so excited to be with you tonight because I really enjoy talking to parents. I actually wrote my dissertation on parental expectations of collegiate teaching and caring. I know that's a mouthful. It just means that I studied what parents expect from colleges in terms of things inside and outside of the classroom. And I'm also one of you. I'm the mom to a 6-year-old boy, which is why I'm doing this from my office tonight, because it was the only way to guarantee there would be no interruptions. Tonight, I'm going to introduce a term that I hope will help us as we partner for your students' success. I don't call students children. I like to call them emerging adults. Emerging adults was coined around 2000 by Arnett, and it refers to people in developed countries who are usually between 18 to 25, do not have their own dependents, and don't have the financial means to support themselves. Now, I know with this setup, I can't see each and every one of you, but I feel you nodding right now because the odds are very good that you are bringing us an emerging adult in the fall. I really like this term because it evokes the changes that should start happening for students during this time. They should start emerging. They should start embracing new aspects of adulthood. They should start taking an active role in solving their problems. And most likely, they should start doing things that maybe you are used to doing for them. Before our panel members introduce themselves and start answering your questions, I want to encourage you to reflect on the videos you just watched, just as you did at the academic excellence session. Where do you see your student in those videos? Did you notice something that they might do or say? I also want to offer a takeaway from the 3 videos. One thing that really stood out to me was that in each scenario, the students had to take action. In the first video, we saw a student navigating multiple identities. They were a first-generation student. They were a student of color at a predominantly white institution, and they were not feeling at home at Loyola. And we sometimes refer to that feeling as a sense of belonging. We want Loyola to be their home away from home. There's a very special day that you dread and we look forward to when they say, I got to go back home, and they mean they're coming to Loyola's campus. And in that scenario, the student articulated developing that sense of belonging by family weekend. And that's great, but I want you to know it doesn't always happen that quickly. It can take time and effort to develop a sense of belonging. We assessed our students, and almost 1,000 of them responded to tell us more about when they knew Loyola was the place for them, that home away from home, the place that they belonged. And a large number said during their first year, and an equally large number said during their sophomore year. And we even had a few that said in their junior year. So I share this data with you so you can understand it is okay and perfectly normal if your emerging adult is still working to develop a sense of belonging throughout their first year. A key in that scenario was the student said that they reached out to engage the resources they had been learning about through summer orientation. The second video focused on Caroline, a student who was involved in nothing, then overcommitted, and then really found their sweet spot of doing enough. And I cannot stress the importance of involvement. Again, when we surveyed our students about what influenced them to know that Loyola was the place for them, 26% said a friend or a peer. 32% said the academic experience and connecting with their professors. And 47% said getting involved on campus. I'll also share with you that students who are used to having overscheduled or highly scheduled days in high school sometimes really struggle with the autonomy and freedom of college, and getting involved actually helps them build accountability, build a schedule, carve out time for studying, and again, build that connection and feel like this is their home. And that final video, it sounded very similar to stories I've heard from students before. They've been somewhere, things started out okay, then things changed. They started to feel uncomfortable. Things started to get out of hand. They weren't sure how to leave or what to do. Again, in that moment, the student had to take action, and their friends offered them some really good advice and support. So in each scenario, the student had to engage, and that's something I really want you to think about. How can you prepare your emerging adult to engage and embrace the resources and opportunities offered here at Loyola? Maybe you need to have coffee with them, maybe you need to have dinner, go somewhere where it feels a little low key and just talk about some of your expectations and really be clear that you expect them to begin to emerge, to start to do things on their own, to get involved and to use these many resources that we're sharing with you. So it's now time for our panelists to introduce themselves and for us to start answering your questions. If we don't get to all the questions that are submitted, we will try to follow up with folks after the fact. And so that's why it's helpful if the questions are not submitted anonymously. To start with our panelists, I want to turn over first to Dr. Cheryl Moore Thomas.
Hello. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's such a pleasure for me to be a part of this panel with my wonderful colleagues. Again, my name is Cheryl Moore Thomas, and I am Loyola's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. Sometimes you may hear that referred to as CEIO. I'm currently serving as interim provost, but for our conversation tonight, I'm really going to speak from the hat I love, and that is of Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. I want to tell you a little bit about what I do, but before I get to that, I just wanted you to know that many years ago, my parents were sitting where you are today. They were about to drop me off at Loyola. Now, certainly we didn't have Zoom back in those days, but what we absolutely had were caring, committed professionals across the institution that made my transition, my walk as an emerging adult successful. So thank you so much for choosing Loyola. You have made an excellent choice, and I know your students' experience is going to be as wonderful as mine. I even came back to work at this place. That's how much I love it. So let me tell you a little bit about a Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, or CEIO. I work with a group of amazing people who are responsible for Loyola's strategic approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What that means is we work across campus to make sure that within each unit, within each division, whether we're talking about academic departments or various areas in student development or campus police or one of the other major areas across our institution, the strategic approach that the CEIO oversees works to ensure that all of us, through our varied programs and initiatives, are working toward our mission, which has a strong belief in the incredible worth and value of each and every one of us, students, faculty, staff, and administrators, as our full selves with all of our intersecting identities. Hopefully we'll get a chance later tonight to talk a little bit more about what that means, but the big umbrella is that the CEIO is in charge of strategic initiatives for diversity, equity, and inclusion across the entire institution. Thank you, Dr. Spearman.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Raven Williams.
Thank you, Christina, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. My name is Raven Williams. I am the Director of Alana Services. I've been here at Loyola now close to 7 years, which I can't believe, time flies. So you heard in one of the videos earlier mention of Alana Services and what our acronym stands for. So what I want to do is just give brief context in terms of the support that we can provide to incoming first-year students. Understanding that that transition can be exciting and yet challenging and a bit nerve-wracking. So one of the things about Alana Services is that we are a retention-based office primarily tasked to provide support to underrepresented students and specifically to our students of color at Loyola. So we do that through a holistic lens with focus on academic achievement as well as cultural education and awareness, and doing a lot of that through a programmatic lens. So quickly, first, I want to talk a little bit about the academic piece. So we do academic intervention services. One of the things that I do with our first year students is I meet with students individually and in some group settings as well too, to have conversations about how classes are going. Around mid-semester, which is roughly around early mid-October, students will start to get a sort of progress report in terms of how they are doing in their classes. And that is usually a signal to me to start having some conversations with students about how they are progressing in their classes. And if there are any challenges that we need to talk about in making sure that students are plugged into the appropriate campus resources so that we ensure that they end their first semester of college successfully. Additionally, we also offer biweekly workshops called Academic and Career Enrichment, or what we call ACE. And so those workshops cover a variety of topics that are pertinent to student success, specifically for first-year students. And that can include anything from time management to building effective study habits, and then going into the career piece, plugging them into the Career Center, and building a strong and effective resume as students are starting to look for on-campus employment, as well as going on for internships. As well as the social and cultural piece, we have 8 student organizations that are tied to Alana Services. And those student organizations are instrumental in helping us to plan and implement the cultural heritage celebrations throughout the campus. And so we encourage all of our students as well as colleagues to get connected to those as well. And just quickly as I conclude, I do want to spotlight an important initiative that comes out of our office that is very helpful and impactful for first year students. And that's the Alana Mentoring Program, otherwise is what we call AMP. And that is a year-long peer-to-peer mentoring program. So students are already going to get that support from us as administrators in the office, but this also adds an added layer of support where students are able to connect with upperclassmen who know the ropes and have already been in their shoes as a first year student and can kind of walk with them side by side, hand in hand, just giving them that added layer of support as they go through their first year of college. So that's just a brief snapshot of Alana Services, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions about our office and support that we provide to first year students.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Brandon Muncy.
Hi, y'all. My name is Brandon Muncy, and I am the LGBTQ plus services coordinator and a staff therapist over in the counseling center. And my job is to work both within the center and with a lot of wonderful colleagues across the campus to make the campus a more welcoming and fulfilling place for our LGBTQ plus identified students. Now, what this looks like takes many different forms, but I will keep it brief. So we offer a wide array of group therapy, individual therapy, health and wellness workshops, seminars, and original programming just aimed at helping students connect to the queer community.
Thanks so much. Our next panelist is Neil Andrito.
Hi and welcome, folks. My name is Neil Andrito. I'm the Director for Student Life here at the university. So that means my role is really working with all of our students who are living on campus, living within the residence halls. My work with my team is really about welcoming our students, making sure our students feel comfortable and confident while they're living on campus, engaging with each other. A lot of the work that the RAs focus on is helping our students establish connections with each other. It's so important for me that our students feel involved and invested with each other while they're here on campus, because I think that the more involved they are, the more invested they are, the more likely they're going to be successful while they're here. I think that the residence halls are the homes for our students. They move out throughout campus all day long. And at the end of the day, they come home to share their experiences with their friends, to share their experiences with their peers, to talk about what experiences they had throughout campus. And that's such a rich environment for our students to be able to kind of reflect and learn about what's happening at Loyola, what's happening throughout the institution, and where else can they be involved. So that's the work that I get to do. I'm really excited to be able to welcome our students and make sure that while they're here and while they're living on campus, they're involved in getting the support they need.
Thanks so much, panelists. It's wonderful for us to have a chance for you all to get to know us better. I'm blessed to work with people who are really experts in what they do. And before we get to our first question, I just want to share one other point with you. Part of why we're doing this, right? Sarah has given you the message all along that we're working to partner with you. But in doing my research, I found that parents are very strong referral agents. I know right now you think they're not listening to you. And maybe as they're ready to leave the nest, things could feel tense or hard, or you're talking and it feels like it's going into the void. And I cannot tell you the amount of times a student has showed up to my office and said, my mom told me how to come and talk to you. They're listening, it's getting in there, and it does bear fruit, and research actually supports that. So one of the reasons we spend the time telling you about these resources is so that you in turn can encourage your students to use them. So our first question, and I'm going to turn it over to Neil and then to Raven, is could you share one tip about how to get involved or to get connected to people on campus? And this would be for those emerging adults. What's the one tip you would share about how to do that?
Sure. The tip that I would share is to meet your RA or your evergreen. As soon as your first year student arrives on campus, we have student leaders and student mentors that are here and excited to form relationships with your student and make sure they're successful. So encouraging them to be open to those relationships, being willing to go meet them, be willing to attend a program, be willing to go grab a cup of coffee. These are students that are here and are eager and are excited to make sure our first year students are having the best experiences possible. So encouraging them to just embrace those relationships. And if for whatever reason they don't feel like they have a strong connection with their RA or their particular evergreen, we have rich, diverse staffs of students. We try and make sure that there is somebody on the RA staff in every building that we hope one of the residents will be able to connect to. If maybe the person living on the floor isn't their cup of tea, there's someone else in the building who they can connect with, who wants to be there and make sure that they're going to have this amazing experience. So encouraging them to form those relationships, engage in those conversations is the easiest first step that they can take.
Thank you. I want to send it to Raven now.
Yeah. So just to tag on to what Neil was talking about, and something was going through my head, and that's the Nike motto, just do it, get connected. So I would tell any student, and I've had this conversation with incoming first year students, and they're like, oh, I was kind of thinking about it. And I'm like, don't think, just do it. So, and we're happy to walk with you through that process. There are two ways in which I would strongly encourage first year students to get connected. And one is with campus involvement. Our office, Alana Services, is fortunate to be in a shared office suite with student engagement. And student engagement hosts a student activities fair every fall semester. That is one excellent way to learn more about and meet representatives of the student organizations. You heard on the video, we have over 100 that you can connect with. And I guarantee every Loyola student can find their niche on campus. And if we don't have what you're looking for, you can create it. So that's the beauty of it. So that's one way that I would encourage engagement. and involvement. The other piece is more through an academic lens, and that is connecting with your faculty head on. And I have a lot of first years, I have upperclassmen that still struggle with this in terms of connecting with their faculty. And the message that I always give is that that is one of the most invaluable things you can do as a student, is to connect with your faculty member early on. They're the person who's not only teaching the course, but if you're having any trouble, or even if you're doing well in the class, still make the connection, because they will be there with you as your coach, your support person. And I will also tell you that, sometimes that meeting with the professor and getting that extra help, you never know what difference that can make in terms of how you fare out in the end of the semester. So those would be my 2 points of encouragement in terms of involvement and making those connections.
Thank you so much, Raven. I want to throw it to Sarah quickly before our next question, because she has some more to share about ways that will be coming up to get involved and understand what's happening at the beginning of the semester.
Thank you, Dr. Spearman. I want to plug Fall Welcome Weekend. It's Loyola's version of fall orientation. It is a tremendous opportunity for students to be able to dig in and get engaged from day one. I think Raven's point of just do it is really the best way to think about it. I've been working at Loyola for 20 years. One thing I've always noticed at Fall Welcome Weekend is we will have a huge crop of students who will say they are homesick and they've only been on campus for about 24 hours. And oftentimes what we see is that they're sitting in their rooms when we're doing activities in the evening. They're not really engaging with their small group, but instead they're FaceTiming with their friends. They're Snapchatting with their friends from home, talking to their family all the time. And I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to connect with family and friends from home. But I also think it's important for the student to be able to find themselves on campus. So it's important to know that we will have activities all day, every day. Every single evening after the students have moved in, up until the first day of classes, we have lots of programming, not just 1 or 2 events. We have 3 or 4 things happening every single evening. So if your student is telling you on day 1 they're bored, please ask them, what's going on? What do you have? What are other students doing? No one should be sitting in their room. And I think that's the absolute best way they can get out there. It's scary, but their orientation leaders will be there to encourage them to get involved as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I say we can also normalize homesickness, right? This is a transition, and we know that that is common among first-year students. And that's also a way to connect with others, is to say to someone like, I'm still finding my way here. How are you doing with things? And you're probably going to have that in common with someone, student to student. And it's also okay. It's part of a transition. The beauty of having a 6-year-old is watching someone do almost everything for the first time. And it's hard. And we forget about that as we get older. And we tend to think that you're going to do something for the first time and it's going to be easy. So I spend my days saying, you've never done this before. This is what learning is. To learn something new is really challenging. And so I also think we need to normalize that growth mindset for them and normalize that this is going to be difficult because it is new. It's also going to be really rewarding. And I think that ties really nicely into our next question when we think about some of those difficulties. So this question is going to be for Brandon. Brandon, we want to know a little bit more about how students can access services at the Counseling Center, the types of things provided, and how much it costs. So I'm giving you 3 questions in one there that came to us. I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So I'll answer the easiest question first. The very good news is that there is no additional fee to see a counselor at our center. So that's already included in the tuition. They can come on in. Now, how they go about it, that can happen in a few different ways. For the fall, we are rolling out online scheduling. So they will have the ability, if walking across the quad feels too heavy, they can make the appointment from their room. They're free to call us, and they're also free to just walk in the center. And we have a pretty wide array of offerings. So we do offer shorter term individual therapy and group therapy. We also offer spaces for underrepresented students. And these are spaces that will be both in person, and they'll also be online through Zoom. There's no barrier. They can literally just log on between these hours and these hours, and there will be a therapist in that room waiting online to talk to them about whatever it is. Sometimes it can be really hard to convince your student to go talk to someone. So we want you to have a few options where there's no commitment, there's no pressure, and no barriers from us. And I think there was a third question, wasn't there?
I think you covered it, how to
Okay.
access, and then is it just individual counseling or are there other things that are available?
Yeah, so we do offer a wide array of groups, and we offer another really important service. I think this is the other thing I was going to bring up. If you already have a student who you think, hey, I think my student's going to require a connection to a long-term provider, you can connect with us and we will work with them every step of the way to help find them a local provider. They will never have to do that on their own. You don't have to do that on your own. And actually, if your student's headed here in the fall, you don't even need to wait. You can start that tomorrow with us if you'd like to.
Thanks so much, Brandon. And I think it's important to name that college counseling centers are set up for quality short-term care. That's really the model if you look at the staffing structure across all of higher ed. And so it's that availability for that short-term need, giving high quality care, and then making referrals. And one of the benefits of being in the Baltimore area, we're really in what I consider kind of the medical and psychological services capital of America. You can find providers that take multiple types of insurance, that can do pro bono, that are within walking distance. There are so many options here. I've attended some more rural and worked at more rural institutions that didn't have this network. And so I think that's something we want you to know as well, that the counseling center will be making referrals and that's important. We also know that telehealth has been maybe one of the benefits of this time in the pandemic, and students may be able to continue with their providers at home, but also think through how you're going to do that, how your student would do that with a roommate, and making sure they think through ways that we could help them navigate privacy and other things, and that it's not something that falls off the list if they need regular therapy or support, that they continue to engage that as they move through their college experience. I'm going to send our next question to Neil. We have a question he's going to love. How does someone become an RA?
Sure, thank you for the question. So each year we go through our hiring process to become a resident assistant, commonly referred to as RAs on campus. And it's a position that I know a lot of students really enjoy getting into because it gives them an opportunity to help welcome others and kind of pay for the experience that they had as a student, where an RA often has a pretty positive impact on someone's experience. So we start our application process during the fall semester, and as long as a student has lived on campus for a semester, we welcome them into our process. We have an application process. We do some interviewing, and really try and make sure that we do a good job of explaining what the position is going to be like for our students, and making sure that they have a good understanding of what the responsibility is that they'd be taking on. And I really think it's an incredible opportunity for students to step into the RA role. I think we offer a lot of training for our students to really make sure that they understand Loyola. They learn about all sorts of services and events that are happening on campus, and really try and make sure that they're experts about campus, so that they're really able to support our students, and making sure that when our students are excited about the A that they got on their first exam, there's a way to celebrate them. But then also, if our students are experiencing a challenge while they're at school, that the RAs are that first line, they're the first person that students are able to kind of trust and share that experience with. And the RAs know exactly like, oh, well, based off our training, we know we can plug you in to this resource. So the RAs do a really great job of doing that. And I think so many students are excited about that opportunity to get that application in early, go through our hiring process, and we're able to hire about 75 RAs each year throughout campus. So it's a good number of students that are able to be involved. And on top of that, the perk of having some of those housing cost offset is a pretty nice bonus for students. So it's definitely a position that many of our students are interested in. And it's never too early to start to learn about it or to get involved or inquire about the process.
Thank you, Neil. I was an RA. My mom accepted the job for me. She wasn't quite ready for me to emerge. I was on a trip with the school, and they called and had a vacancy, and she said she'll take it. And so that really helped set me on this journey. She was right. But for those housing costs, for that opportunity to be involved, it is a great opportunity. I want to shift for our next question is going to be for Raven. And I want to set it in the context of part of that first video really talked about navigating identity, and want to highlight a little more. You know, we only have an hour with you tonight. We could spend hours talking about the importance of identity and sense of belonging and inclusion. And really that inclusion, as Cheryl was telling us, it is active. It is not just not excluding, it is actively inviting and welcoming. And we recognize that there could be a number of identities where feeling included could be challenging. And so specifically, Raven, if you could tell us what are some of the supports and opportunities for students of color at this predominantly white campus to help build some of that community and affinity?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you. So the one thing, I always want to acknowledge with our students is the fact that, to acknowledge our identities and acknowledging the fact that, we are navigating this collegiate experience while attending, a PWI. And so for students that identify from a different cultural or racial ethnic group, that can be unique at times, and kind of speaking to the inclusivity and sense of belonging. Something at Loyola where it's tied to our core values is the piece around diversity and community, which those are two of our core values. And then yet, for some students that can be challenging, realistically speaking. So we do have some affinity spaces where students are able to do a couple of things. One, they're able to continue on that that identity exploration and development process, and they can do that in a space that we at least hope that students feel is safe and judgment free, and also inclusive in terms of hearing and sharing our experiences and those different pieces of our identity, and being able to do that in a safe space. So there are two spaces that I'll talk about that our office sponsors. So one is Man to Man and Sister to Sister. And so those are spaces held for men of color and women of color within the Center of Intercultural Engagement, which is directly across from our physical office suite. And those are biweekly conversational spaces that are held. And what's the beauty of both of those spaces is that it's inclusive of not only students, but as well as campus partners, such as faculty, staff, and administrators. And it's a really good community space where we're able to have those transparent conversations about not only our experiences at Loyola, but also things that we are seeing, current events around the country and even on a global level as they pertain to racial and social justice. Also talking about that identity exploration piece, talking about the intersectionality of identities and how we embrace that as a part of diversity and inclusion. And so those are spaces where it's been a beautiful thing to observe and witness our students really blossom in those spaces. The other thing that we encourage is that you build that community within those four walls of that physical space, right? But then the goal is to take that community and bridge building beyond those four walls and be able to do that and build that community on a broader level scope, if you will, across campus. And that's been tremendously helpful for students who perhaps do not frequent our office. We do a lot of outreach, but oftentimes, there are students that we may not connect with right away for whatever reason. And spaces such as Man to Man and Sister to Sister have truly served as an impactful springboard, if you will, where students that are connected to that space, if they have a peer that they're connected to, say it's a roommate or someone that they work with on campus, and they are kind of struggling to make those connections, bringing them into those spaces where they can find that sense of community and sense of belonging has been really helpful and impactful. We also have another community space called Hora de Café con Leche, and that is a space that is held for our students that are native and or fluent Spanish speakers. And that space has been really important because that actually came as a need that we were hearing from our students that are of Latinx culture. And Christina was talking about the homesickness piece, and for a lot of our students that are coming to us from like Puerto Rico and other places, you know, they were talking about how much they miss home. Like Loyola is great, but you know, sometimes nothing beats home, and I get that. I'm a Midwestern girl, so I mean, I miss home too sometimes. So I think having that space has also been helpful because, you know, with students, and again, as well as campus partners, have been able to and have again those transparent conversations and being able to do that with a sense of fluency in their native language. I think has again provided that sense of home and that sense of belonging. So that's a couple of examples of affinity spaces, if you will, for our students of color. And I think again, those spaces have been really helpful. And the great thing is too, those spaces are inclusive too. So I think, and I mean that through the sense of, I think they've helped us to come out of those spaces and then generate larger conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion for the campus community. And then I think some of that has led into larger events that we've had, such as like Alana town halls and things like that. So, so I think those are examples of spaces that have provided that space of support and sense of belonging.
Thank you so much. And you highlighted those spaces leading to broader connectivity around inclusion. So I wanted to give Dr. Moore Thomas a chance to also weigh in.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to add to what Ms. Williams laid out for us. Because inclusion is so important around each and every aspect of our campus, one of the things that we're doing within the classroom space is working with faculty to make sure that pedagogy or the ways in which they teach their discipline are based in inclusive practices. So faculty get together for workshops throughout the academic year to focus on high impact practices, or those practices which will engage students in the classroom to make the educational experience as experientially based as possible, to have students engaged in their learning. And that is something that we help faculty prepare for throughout the academic year and devote specific trainings to that, and even ensure through our Office of Academic Affairs that faculty are evaluated on how well they are meeting those needs. One of the things that we do within the Academic Affairs Office, because inclusion is so important to us, is that we work very, very closely with all of the individuals and offices that you see represented in this panel tonight, but also with others like academic advising, to make sure that we are in fact reaching every student, and every student is connected to a faculty member who serves as a mentor, not just a content expert, but someone who, given our belief, will connect with your student in the classroom and beyond. That is really our goal. It's this work and commitment to inclusion also moves further into our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan for the university. One of the pillars of that plan is inclusion and accessibility, where we're working on specific initiatives to make sure that our Loyola home is a home for everyone. And so we're looking at issues of physical accessibility, also that we have safe spaces for students throughout our community, also for faculty, staff, and administrators, and that we have practices and programs that are inviting and open to all. And that we're doing at the university level to make sure our students, first and foremost, but also faculty, staff, and administrators are part of that commitment for full inclusion.
Thank you so much. Our time is almost up. We're going to wrap up, and Sarah's going to end with some words of wisdom for you and some final kind of words of business. I think I just want to summarize some of what you've heard tonight, and probably what you've experienced through this whole orientation experience, is that Loyola is a well-resourced place. We have a number of resources to support your student, and we want to help them along this journey. We want them as emerging adults to begin the development that is so critical during the time that they're here. And that is holistic development, right? It is not just in the classroom as they're being challenged at the collegiate level. It is about living in community. It is about sharing space with others. It is about navigating, accepting, and celebrating different identities while exploring their own. This is kind of holistic model. And community is something that we talk about really frequently. Things that you can do is to think about your own emerging adult. What are their challenges going to be? You know them very well. You're the subject matter expert on them now, and you know what is going to be a struggle for them, what could be a challenge, and how can you use this remaining time with them to prepare them? Again, maybe you need to talk with them about some of these resources. Maybe you need to be really clear and say, we expect you to get involved in at least 2 things outside of class so that you're using your time in a productive manner. Maybe you need to be really explicit with those expectations. Maybe you need to ask them, you're so excited about this transition. Is there anything that you're still a little nervous about? Open up that conversation and again, prepare them for making this transition, because there are things that we're going to expect them to do. When we put those 120 clubs and organizations out there on the quad, we're doing our part. Their part is to come out and engage. I recognize that can be really hard for some folks. That can feel overwhelming. I think anytime you find they're willing to put themselves out there, they're going to have a receptive audience. They're going to have folks that are going to say, let's come alongside of you and let's help you be successful. Again, I want to thank you for the time that you've spent with us tonight. I want to thank all the panelists as well. We're going to turn it over to Sarah for our closing.
Thank you so much. And yes, tonight we have had some rock star panelists, some of my favorite people for us to hear from on campus. So I will echo Dr. Spearman's thank you and thank our panelists again for being here. I also wanted to make a quick plug. One of the things that you've heard is kind of how easy we try to make it to get involved. And Dr. Spearman talked just a little bit about the activities fair in the fall. Your students are going to receive so much information about what's going on. Oftentimes, though, they may say they don't have the club that I really want to join. And I think it's important to know how easy it is for us to help students to form their own clubs and organizations based on their interests. We also will have ongoing late night programming. So really, I talked about it for Fall Welcome Weekend, but it's important to know that we as a university are committed to having late night programming every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night of the entire academic year. We never want students to feel like there's nothing to do. So hopefully you got your questions answered. You may have a ton more, and that's okay. I know that this can be a nerve-wracking time. So one of the things that I will be doing is once we have a recording for this all ready to go, I'm going to send an email out to all of you, let you know where the recording can be found, but also send you a list of campus resources, particularly related to this topic. This is kind of your who to call list if you've got a question about something. And if you don't know who to call, you are always welcome to contact the Office of Student Engagement. Our email address is very easy. It's orientation@loyola.edu. We will figure out who your question can best be answered by or how to best connect you. So just a couple of things about what's coming up. We do have one last webinar. It is next week, Thursday. You'll actually be getting an event invitation within the next hour. It's going to cover the topics of campus health and safety. So campus resources around student health and wellness, as well as public safety. We'll also talk a little bit about protocols related to COVID and safety on campus in terms of the students well-being while they're there, while they're with us. And then after that, we're going to be communicating with your students and also with you about their arrival to campus, as well as fall welcome weekend. One thing that's really important, I stress it every single session we host, please make sure that your student is checking their Loyola email address regularly. That is where we are connecting with you, with your student as a university. That is the official channel. If they still have not figured out how to do that, contact my office. We will get them in touch with our technology services staff to make sure that they know how to log in and use that. The last thing, if you do want to see any of the other sessions that we've hosted this summer so far, or need to kind of a reminder of what's still to come, our website is www.loyola.edu/orientation. You can see recordings of past sessions and other office resources that are there for you. Thank you again for your time with us. I will be sending out a brief survey just as a chance to be able to figure out what we did well and maybe areas for improvement. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in person in just over a month. Take care, everyone.